Recording in progress.
All right, I'd like to call the Village of Cottage Grove Village Board of Trustees to order. It's Monday, November 21st at 6:30 p.m. We are holding this as a hybrid meeting, meaning we are in the Village Hall as well as available on Zoom or an audio call, and all the links are at the top of the agenda. We have a quorum, and the agenda was properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 is public appearances. For an opportunity for the public to speak. If you are from the public and would like to speak, I ask that you share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes, just in case we have a number of folks who would like to speak. So with that, I'll be quiet. Anybody in the room or on Zoom, feel free to chime in. All right, next then is to discuss and consider our meeting minutes from our regular Village Board meeting held on November 7th and our 2023 Village Board Budget Workshop held on November 15th. Any questions, comments, edits, or consideration for motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melissa. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next up, unfinished business, starting off with discuss and consider the scope of the continued study to current and future village facilities with FGM Architects. Andy.
You need to turn it
You
on.
got to turn it off, pull it towards you, the top button there. There you go.
There's no light, it just...
It flicked on for a second and then, okay. Hello again, everybody. Andrew Mayo from FGM Architects. So I'm here tonight just to quickly go over the proposals that I sent in and answer any questions that you guys might have. The 3 proposals that I sent to Matt for consideration, one being the revisiting the original study, trying to break that down into more manageable sub-projects, if you will. The next one would be the EMS satellite station, studying conceptually how that would look on the site. And then the third one being library master planning. And last time I was here, Lori joined me from my St. Louis office. She's our library subject matter expert, so she would be heavily involved in that project as well. So, Matt, I know you had a spreadsheet that you were going to share just to kind of break down, like I said, you've got a lot of options to choose from here. So if there are any questions on how those options would actually look, which options are included versus a la carte, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Any questions from board members?
Sure, I will go first, I guess.
All right, thank you.
So I did have a question regarding in one of the items, it showed the library, or the village hall and library together. Is that with the library at the municipal building site, or is that looking at village hall on the library site? What exactly?
So, in the library project, if you see line 7 there, that would be looking at, right, what if the library is incorporated to the MSB site? And then I also included a line down in the MSB project to say, what if the village hall was not at MSB and it was a combined library on some site, whether it's the preferred library site or somewhere else?
Okay, So to look at each of those separately, one's $6,400 and one is $5,500.
Correct.
And so evaluate temporary library, what do you mean by that?
So in discussion, met with David and Cindy as well as JJ. We talked about the scope of what that library master planning should look like based on Lori's presentation. So we walked through all those 4 steps again. And out of that, one thing that we wanted to consider was what happens to this building when Village Hall moves to the MSB or wherever you decide to move Village Hall to expand the facility. One of the things that David brought up was, what if we use the library or the Village Hall temporarily as our library, knowing that it's the first step in implementation of the master plan?
For then it to be where the land currently is, or?
To be determined based on the outcome of the study and.
I think to a little bit more context, right? So in conversations with other trustees, the idea is that I can only borrow so much per year. So Heidi, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think it was Heidi that had mentioned this to me, that is there an interim step? Is there an interim place to put the library? And so I just mentioned that in passing. I think it's, again, kind of in the spirit of Sarah, right? In terms of all options on the table, like is there a temporary interim step?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's kind of what.
Yeah. And
So I just brought it up as a potential option. I think in talking with JJ, I know the building where Dunkin' Donuts is going, I think there might still be an empty, I don't know if you checked or not, but probably not. Never mind, take that off the plate. So I'm literally throwing spaghetti at the wall in terms of options.
So then would you be looking at what it would cost to renovate here?
Yeah,
since
so
originally-
included in that price would be conceptually, what does this look like as a library, and then what does it cost to get there through renovation?
Because originally, the MSB basically was decided to expand that because this would kind of sounded as if this was not worth fixing.
You don't have enough land here for the amount of space that you need for your Village Hall. That was the finding of the study.
So it's not that it wasn't worth fixing.
Long-term, you'd have to take a long look at, and that's part of what we want to do if, this option is put into the study. Not to say that you have to make that decision today, even if we get 3/4 of the way through the study and we say, all right, here's kind of preliminarily where we're looking, and you as the village board come and say, okay, well, can we look at Village Hall and what that would look like? We can do that at that time. But what I would do as part of that process is work with JJ, since he knows this building kind of in and out from a mechanical standpoint, to determine just how much it would cost to do all of the necessary mechanical systems upgrades versus putting Band-Aids on, depending on the time frame of this being a temporary home for a library.
Okay. And how many square feet is this?
Gross square feet of this building is roughly 7,200.
Okay. Thanks.
I had another question, unless there's someone talking in the room.
You're good, Heidi.
Okay, all right, thanks. I was wondering about if this would include a phased approach at all at the Friends site. But since we kind of have these limitations on how much we can borrow per year, based on the things we know already about what we're looking for in a library, we might not be able to build it all at once. So would any of this include, or one of these options that we could add, include kind of a phasing of that, an option at that site?
That's definitely something that I could include in that 34,800 if it's to the point where we're saying, all right, here's all in however many millions of dollars. What happens if we break that up into, here's your main space, and then maybe there's wing A, wing B with some multi-purpose rooms or, you know, additional space that we determine is needed as part of the master plan. So breaking it up into phases, I don't think would be a tremendous ask to include in that base budget.
Okay, great, thank you.
This is Sarah. I have a question, if I may. I can't tell if anyone's talking, like Heidi. So
Go ahead,
hopefully
Sarah.
that's okay. Okay, thank you. Just wondering if, I think you had mentioned, but, so for example, the each additional rendering optional, the 9,200 in the library, the 3,800 in EMS, is that something we could decide on as we get closer? Because I don't want to pay that money.
Yes,
And
you-
there isn't another rendering.
All of the options beyond the base study are things that you can pick from the menu at any point. It's not that you have to lump that all in before the contract. We can add those as additions to the contract if it gets to that point in the process where you decide, hey, we really don't like it at the preferred site anymore, or we like it there, but we want to see what it looks like in this other site that you determine. So yeah, those optional services are optional at any point in the process.
One question I have is, so then, so I know there are standards and regulations for a library that we need to meet with Dane County, I mean the state, but Dane County is a little bit more,
Stringent.
there you go. They just have more. And so I don't think a 7,200 square foot library will meet any
Most likely not.
requirements. So then, if this is too small for a village hall, and is there enough space though to add on to whatever the minimum square foot requirement is for a library?
So in looking at this building, I don't think it's ever, it was ever conceived that this would be the library long-term. So I think it's that stopgap in the interim to say, you know, a library is something that everybody in the village of Cottage Grove wants. Obviously, can't necessarily afford everything all at once. So do you put some money into this building for however many years until the official library is built, knowing that it doesn't meet those Dane County and
But I don't
developmental
think we can do that is what I'm getting at. Like, I don't know that Dane County Library Service would allow us to be part of their system.
Right, and that's why this would be a temporary solution. And
Have
that-
you checked with anybody on that?
No, so that's something that we can look at as part of this study. It's not necessarily,
I think, and we didn't talk about this in the meeting, but I think ultimately, whatever the interim step is, it has to meet the bare minimum Dane County Library standard.
okay.
Right, so, and I'm pretty confident we didn't tell you that during.
No.
But I think that's an important distinction to make, right? Is like, if we're gonna build even an interim step, it has to be.
Sure.
The 25,000 square feet is to meet and exceed the standards of state and county requirements.
It's to meet the needs of our community.
And to meet the needs of our community, right?
But I think the 10,000 square feet is like the bare minimum
Okay.
for our size
Yeah.
of population.
And David, I think you were alluding to, when you were asking JJ about a certain site, something in that range of 10,000 or so square
Yeah.
feet that you could look at, you know, doing a temporary build-out to get the library up and running while the building is being
I think
built.
the key is, again, going back to the point of, we can only borrow so much a year. You know, it just, if I sit down and do back of the napkin math to renovate anything, makes the entire project over the life of the project much more expensive. But again, we're dealing with the financial situation that it is what it is, right? So the village wants a library, but we also can't borrow, you know, a large sum of money all at once, right, to build the 25,000 square feet. So the goal was during our meeting, right, to just, what are our options to meet the minimum threshold? Because ultimately, if we, just for context, right, like if we don't build to the county standards, we don't get reimbursed by the county, right? So then it costs even more money, right? So knowing that it's gonna cost more money to have an interim step, the last thing I wanna do is to make it so that I have to cost even more, like, more on top of more.
And
right?
we'll work with you to pull together those budgets so that you're making an informed decision on, if we do this, here's how much it's gonna cost us, with all of those things in mind, knowing that either A, you're getting the reimbursement, or no, you're not. We can work with you guys to determine all of that and lay it out in the budget so that it makes sense for everybody.
The reason why I bring it up is like, I don't wanna waste $6,400 to look at a temporary library at Village Hall if it's not even like within the
Sure.
realm of possibilities to,
Yeah, and that's why that is definitely on the à la carte optional services, as part of the project.
And I can put
To
some,
me, oh, go ahead.
I just want to put some additional context. So currently, if we would have a library this upcoming year, the county has levied essentially what they would reimburse us, about 270,000. So it's not kind of a blank checkbook from a reimbursement standpoint if we have their standard. So it would be, I think, in the temporary library situation, you know, it's going to cost far more than 270,000 to build and maintain any type of renovation. So if we couldn't borrow the full amount to build a building, yes, there'd be a little bit of a 270,000 sunk cost here because we'd have to pay the tax for not meeting the minimum Dane County standard. But it would allow us to have a library in the temporary situation until a full-blown library is built. One caveat we might be able to take a look at is, I think they give you 3 years to meet the standard. So if we could get a timeline to line up, Dane County might allow us, as long as we're within that 3 years of meeting Dane County standard, to use this as a temporary library as well. But some additional research would have to go into that.
And that's all part of that discovery phase of the master plan, is to pull all of that information together in one concise piece of the report.
I was just gonna say, and I apologize for background noise, I'm in an airport. To me, it makes sense to just do the basic on each, the library, the 34,008 for the library, the 9.8 for the EMS, and the 15, and then the discounts. And then as we go, what I'm hearing, Andrew, is that we can add, so we don't have to decide all those things tonight, right? Am I understanding that?
Yeah, you're 100% correct.
That kind of makes sense.
Sounded like a motion to me.
Sarah, is that a motion?
Yeah, I make the motion, I make that motion. I don't know how the discounts work. We get the discount for each of those, right? So I don't know the final dollar amount to approve. If we just do those initial studies plus the discount,
I'll do the math really quick.
thank you.
Put an Excel.
Sounds about right.
53,200.
53, okay, so I make a motion that we approve contracting with FGM, I don't have the words in front of me, for $53,200 for the public library master planning study, EMS district pre-design study, and MSP project phasing.
Second.
All right. Motion from Sarah.
To be
second.
clear, does the motion then not include evaluating co-locating the library in the municipal services building site?
We can do that later.
Yeah, I
Take care of
guess
that
I was
later.
thinking that we do that after we get started, we decide that.
All right. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Andy.
Should I leave this on or off?
You turn off. Oh, wait, we got somebody else coming up, right? Yes, we do. Sorry.
Who's in charge?
Next up, discuss and consider the property ownership adjustments in Shady Grove. Sounds like a legal thing.
Right. I'm gonna pull up the file here. So as I mentioned in a previous meeting, there was some disagreement between the Shady Grove developer and the neighbor to the south about where the legal property line is on that property, and I mentioned that our solution was to arrange for quick claims amongst the parties so that what we need as a village, which is the remainder of a few feet at the end of Bus Road for purposes of getting the water to move, stormwater to move in the directions we need it to move, and what the Shady Grove developer needed on the lots that are on the western side of that south boundary line would be deeded to the village and the developer. And where we have some additional feet, I forget if it's 0.5 acres or something like that, maybe less, along the stormwater structures or improvements. Those were built inside of this disputed line, and so the solution was for the village to quit claim to that property owner to the south, that little triangle of land along our stormwater pond, and to receive the same from that owner for the end of Bus Road. Those documents have been prepared, and we're seeking approval for that, for those to be signed, and we won't execute those until at the same time to make sure that what we need is going to be given back in exchange for what the village would be giving here. So this will just settle this property dispute for all village purposes moving forward.
All right, thanks, Larry.
Josh might have something to add.
Any questions regarding this? We touched on this a meeting or two ago. Otherwise, it's discuss and consider.
Larry, part of me really wants to know the backstory here, but part of me tells me I probably don't.
I can answer that. It's an odd thing to ask you to do, so I can do that relatively quickly. There's a concept, or there's a legal doctrine called adverse possession, commonly known as squatters' rights. And if there's a boundary, if the legal recorded boundary is different than what people use as the boundary line over a sufficient period of time, that entity or the owner, or the property owner that uses that property can claim ownership. And so there's kind of a cloud on the title at this point because of that, because that's been asserted. And this is just the kind of thing you run into once in a while when you're dealing with, especially farmland.
Yeah.
In this case, that's what did happen. There was a fence line that was put in, not on the property line, probably more terrain or existing trees related as to where they did it, and people just sort of used that, or at least arguably used that as the line. And so these things, we run into these things dozens of times a year in our firm. You just got to figure out a practical way to move forward with whatever it is that makes it's really a very boring story.
In that vein, I'll make a motion to approve the property ownership adjustments in Shady Grove.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Melissa. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next up, new business. Annual review of village consultants, service provider, and this one is for Strand. So Josh.
All right. Let me try to share my screen here. Says it's trying. Does Gabe have to give me,
It shouldn't. You should be able to share.
It worked earlier.
It's not the operator, is it?
Could be.
Yeah.
Kyla's here to help me. Wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know?
Had to click on the screen.
All right. So we're here for our annual review of engineering services. It's been a year and a half, so we're past that year mark because if you recall, you hired us a year and a half ago and you skipped us the first half year. So tonight we would like to talk a little bit about ourselves again, some of our team, and then just talk about the projects that we worked on this year and get feedback. Kyla's here with me tonight, and she's going to kind of perform half the presentation. So just a little bit about Strand. Profile of our firm shows our organizational strength, assuring the village a long-term partnership. We established in 1946. We're a multidisciplinary engineering firm, 12 locations nationwide, 945 employees. We're getting close to 500. Of those, 190 of us are sitting in our Madison corporate office. So quite a few engineers here in the Madison area. We're employee-owned and managed company. 173 of the top 500 design firms in the nation, and you know we do a good job and have received quite a few awards throughout a variety of our projects and offices. So I talk about full service. You know, what do we offer as part of the full service capabilities? Municipal, which is a lot of the stuff that we do for the community here, right? Streets, roads, traffic. I know Matt likes traffic. Utilities, facilities, that sort of thing. We have a transportation group that does mostly DOT, county type projects. Wastewater, whether that's wastewater treatment plants like MMSD or collection systems, pump stations. Water supply, a variety of different things for water supply. Building and facilities, green infrastructure, and aviation. Our team provides the village with numerous engineer connections. This was a goal of ours coming into this. I know there's a lot of small little pictures on the screen, but this shows you kind of the main engineers that have been involved over the last year and a half here at the village. I myself is your village engineer. Kyla is, I put her as assistant village engineer, but she's a village engineer too. I think staff knows that Kyla deals with a lot of stuff here. I'm hoping you see her more and more at some of these meetings as, you know, Larry and Rick kind of tag team. Kyla and I are definitely tag team partners as part of that. And the goal behind that too is we don't believe, and I don't believe in just, you know, a single source of contact. You know, the idea is to have multiple contacts across the firm. If I were to step away, somebody else could fill in, or if staff needed to get a hold of somebody and I wasn't there, who could they call? So all of these people have been throughout the village and have worked on village projects throughout the year. And I won't go through all of them, but you can see there's a variety of them there. And that's not all of them. These were specifically working on specific projects. Recent projects demonstrate our ability to serve the village's needs. So there is a lot of projects here. We kind of came into this knowing that there was a handful of things that we had to do, right? Developments, you can see on the side there, most of those subdivisions on the top, and then from Amazon down, just site-specific, but a handful of things. Some of those involved construction, some of those involved site reviews. We're working with Aaron and the development team on a lot of those, and it's been a lot of fun. Public Works, there was a lot of Public Works projects as part of this. Clark and Grove, County Truck Highway N, Oak Street, Taylor Ridge, a lot of road construction projects this summer. Solar project, Baden Pond, which is probably going to turn into North Lawn. We've had to work through that a little bit. Utilities, water and sewer master plan is part of kind of that overall 10-year look that we did with the Utility Commission. That was a big undertaking in this last year, and then there's always GIS updates or GIS things to work on as part of the village. Parks, Sean has a lot of things going on in parks, Community Park, Red Hawk, West Lawn, Skate Park. A lot of things still yet to do on a handful of those projects, and walking, you know, still more to come. And then others, you know, the urban service amendment, and then an extension of the staff. You know, that's always been a goal of mine too, is we are an extension of staff. If they need something, they can reach out to us. You know, we're there to, you know, help them in any regard. I was thinking the other day, like, Gabe had a question about how could he do something and utilize GIS. Well, we had him contact Dan. We got it taken care of right away. You know, that's what we're here for. Like, they can just reach out, and we're part of their team. So then I'm going to let Kyla talk a little bit about just some of the before and after projects that we've worked on this summer.
Perfect. So Josh mentioned we worked on a bunch of public works projects, so I'll just go through those quickly. Sorry, Sean, we're not going to talk about the parks, but
There's
they're
not much
coming
time.
through.
Yeah.
They're going to be done soon.
Next time.
Next year. So the Clark and Grove Street before, we came in at the end of the design process right before bidding, so MSA did the design of it. However, Strand did come through and we did help with the land acquisition for the Vilas Pond off of Vilas Road. You can see very non-urbanized road. We came through, urbanized it, have a bunch of extra parking for the rugby club, and added storm sewer throughout the park, from the limits of pretty much Grove all the way to Clark Street. Or to Vilas Street, sorry. So this is looking west towards Vilas, towards the town property, and you can see all new curb and gutter. You have the concrete sidewalk that links the rugby club and the village limits back to Grove Street. And then from there, we also did County Highway Trunk and Main Street, the urbanization of that project. So looking north towards I-94 here, you can see no curb and gutter, little stormwater. Cottage Grove Commons has yet been built in this picture. They then came through and made all the apartment buildings and condos. And so within this project, we urbanized both sides of the road, add the bike path as well that was designed. And we also made both the left turn bay and the right turn bay, both into commons and then over by where JEK is being built now. Added new pavement markings, added a bike lane, and all the improvements that went with the urbanization. We also had the 2022 Streets project, so that's included both West Oak Street and Ridge and Taylor. On West Oak Street, as JJ called it the first time we went on Oak Street, the racetrack, very wide road. Everyone was speeding down. Came through, narrowed the road, added a bike path, and did some pavement replacements as well. So from there, you can see there's got the parking lane, the bike path on the far left side that also shows this edge of bike path was actually where the existing curb was beforehand. So we really narrowed that road to reduce speed coming through there. On Taylor Street, we added not only a brand new 8-inch water main to upgrade the 6-inch water main from Main Street all the way to what was originally going to be Foreston, but ran into some problems of there was some existing 6-inch main, so we extended and got rid of all of the 6-inch mains. So now there's brand new 8-inch main and service connections from Main Street all the way to just before Yarrow Hill, I believe. We also added a bike lane along Taylor Street and it replaced the pavement as well. So this is looking towards County Highway N. And you can see afterwards you've got 2 new turn lanes onto N and a brand new bike path along the side of the north side of the street. And then on the flip side, you have Ridge as you're leaving the town, or the village, sorry, into the town, looking towards the curb, or the curve as you're encroaching town limits. Very rural section. We came through, milled and overlaid, pulverized it, and put in new pavement through there as well as added a shoulder for that drop off. The road does look wider here. It's just the angle of the picture that I took. So it's same width, promise. All of the public works projects that we've done have been substantially complete through this point. We have not done final pay requests for all of them. So this chart kind of shows you the change order record through the projects. You can see the bid cost of the 3 public works projects and their total, and what we've estimated the final construction cost to be. This has taken into consideration what has been paid out for other contractors already and the little items that are left. For example, the 2022 streets improvements and County Highway N both have the RRFB to cross County Highway N that still need to be installed. So those estimated construction costs are included in there. We have had a couple of change orders for each of the projects for some unforeseen things that we didn't anticipate, but with what we've been able to look at as construction has gone on with existing base course with EBS and how we can work with the contractor to make sure they're not just, hey, let's dig out all of the base course because it's what in the contract is, and actually being out there and working with the contractor, we've been able to save the village some money. So typically, change orders for engineers firms sit around 5%, give or take. Strand likes to be at that 2% mark firm-wide, and here we've come in at about 3.5 at this point for under three
Under.
and a half.
It's
Sorry.
kind of a good, yeah.
It's
kind
gonna
of a
be
good-
under,
Good
yep.
summer as part of this, and, yeah, it's another thing we tried to, indicate at the beginning too, like, we wanted to make sure there was a bunch of staff, you got to meet people, we were all here for you, and then at the same time, budgets are very important. And we know budgets are important. Set the budget correctly, get the bids in, and then at the same time, work with the contractor to see if we can even bring those bids down, because there's gonna be changes. There's always changes during construction. Sometimes, the village wants to do something a little extra, or on Taylor, we have to add 200 feet of water main as part of that, because we find something that nobody knows about. So, balancing that through construction is important to try to, get results like this every time, and that's what we strive for. The parks are not finished yet. I think Community Park is pretty close to be right on track, and then Bakken still has a lot of work to be done, but, we're hoping we can see similar results on some of those projects as well.
That's all we've got,
Yeah,
unless you have any questions.
no traffic.
Next time.
I do have a question. I'm glad you mentioned community park. So on the snafu with the pickleball courts,
Courts, yep.
is that something you guys could have helped us avoid, or was that just completely unavoidable?
So that's a good question. So what happened at the courts is, and Sean could give us some background too, because we all kind of saw it happen late in the game. They came and they paved the courts, and then instead of letting either us, letting Sean, or even letting the prime contractor know, this was a sub, they came out and marked and cored the holes on the weekend. So at that point, we were all like, what happened? They're in the wrong spot. It was discovered later as they were setting posts that they were on the wrong spot. So they've agreed, as part of that, there's a couple things. There's a little extra cost. We've been dealing with this issue on our end for quite a while with them. Sean's been dealing with it too, that they've agreed to pay for as part of that. And then they've also agreed to remedy as best they can. You've they've probably filled the holes. They've reheated, they've rolled again, to give us then an extended warranty on the surface overall. So instead of it being a 1-year warranty, they're gonna give us up to a 5-year warranty on the plain surface as part of that for cracking and what else as part of it. But there's nothing we could have done besides remind them to remind all of us that we needed to be there for these things. So unfortunately, no, I don't think we could have done something different.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So along those lines, does the contractor always work with that subcontractor then?
So the contractor in this case, the prime contractor is Homburg. I'm forgetting the subcontractor, his name, Midwest Sealing Code. If they did other things, they may. I don't know how much they've worked with them specifically, no. But this coating, people that do this coating do a lot of coating. It's not something that, I think they even, Sean, you've talked to them too. It's not something that it's the first time they've ever done, either. That's what was kind of surprising about it when they laid it out.
I would hope that we try to avoid them then,
In the future.
yeah, if
They'd,
possible.
they'd probably be the least likely sub to ever make another mistake. I want to jump in on the question of, was there anything you could do? Strand and the standard contracts the village use, that's what you do. And we didn't have to spend money to enforce this. It was, I haven't heard about this since the day they learned about it, which means they were locked in. It was clear whose fault it was. And, there's always going to be some mistakes. It's just about how hard is it and how expensive is it to protect the village's interests when mistakes are made.
Yep.
Being Sean and the folks at Strand, this to me is the best way it can go when you have a mistake.
Josh, it's kind of a credit to you guys. It's been an awesome transition. You guys, from where I sit, everything's been, I have no complaints. I think, Larry, to your point, you've been doing so well that I wanted to see something. It's good to see something went wrong, right?
Yeah.
Just to see how you respond, right?
Yeah. Overall, David, overall, the park stuff has been a challenge this year.
Yeah. And to be fair,
And to be fair, I don't know if it's anybody in this room's fault, right?
Sure.
I think part of it is it's been, for those two projects, the contractors haven't been as responsive, right? And they've been delayed. The only thing I've talked to Sean about, and I think it's important for Bakken, is those were some of the later bids that were sent out because of everything that was going on, plus some of the changes that that Parks Board was, deciding on as part of that. I think just bid it earlier too, because it got late in the game in the season, and everybody was so busy, and then the contractors were kind of fumbling on themselves.
Sure.
I mean, Bakken is a pure example of that
I mean,
case.
I've had enough conversations with Andrew Homburg and Sean and JJ,
Yeah.
like, to know that this was a challenging summer, to say the least,
Yeah,
right? I think
it was.
again, I asked you that question just to see if you had a take on it. I
Yeah.
think you answered it how I would have answered it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything you could have done, right?
No.
I think, honestly, the only feedback I've gotten from residents was that, and we talked about it the last meeting you were here, when somebody walked through the concrete.
Yep.
Right, again, these
Yep.
are not things that,
Yep.
Strand is not gonna put somebody out
Right.
there to watch that concrete 24/7.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, and you work, and, JJ at Public Works, and you
Right.
guys worked with the concrete sub, and they're gonna come back and.
They'll just
report.
pull it out, yeah,
Not a big
and it's
deal. So,
part of
like,
them pulling it out.
It's just, it's been really, really, I don't know if refreshing is the word, but it's been a pleasure, right, working with you guys. You guys are always on top of the ball. I think your phone is like surgically planted to your hand, and anytime I call
We
you.
try
It's
to.
like, yeah, so I really appreciate the work you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, the one other thing that because I always feel like, yes, I always feel there's issues, or there's improvement or things we can do better, right? So the only other thing that I was concerned about this summer was the length of some of the construction that was going on and how contractors were pulling in and out of sight. Taylor was bothering me quite a bit.
Me too.
Yeah, and it comes down to what can you do, right? Like, what can you do as part of the contract? What can you make them do? And you can remind them and try to enforce things. Some of it, we did run into water main, and then they had to stall. And the hard thing with installing water main is you're installing it, then you gotta let it sit for a while, then you gotta get the safe bacterial tests out of it, then you gotta attach the laterals, and it takes time. So when we thought we were done, then we weren't done. We had some speeding problems out there. The contractor was letting the road get a little rough to try to slow traffic down. There was a lot of little things.
Is that what they did?
Yeah, they did a little bit of that on purpose. Means and methods, when it comes to the contractor and how they want to do the work, we can't get over involved in.
Sure.
But we can slap the contract back on them as much as possible.
Yep.
So was that another thing that I'd like to have done better? Yeah, but again, it's like you're at the mercy of the contractor.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, and again, I don't want to badmouth anybody, right? But like, from our former engineer, I mean, like, to now, it's night and day, right? And so just the little things that you're looking for, I mean, are just, to me, that's like half a percentage point better, right? You've already got the A, right? And you're looking for the A plus here. So like, I don't know, maybe I'm a fanboy, but I'm a big fan, and can't say thank you.
We appreciate the feedback.
I appreciate what David's saying, and until you put up that last slide with the percentages, I had totally forgotten that was an issue that we had dealt with our previous engineer. So that just, like, as well as you've done this past year and a half, I mean, it made me forget about the previous, so thank you. The other thing that brought up is, and I think this might actually be to Larry about responsible bidder ordinance, how the language, and were you, like, is that just stuff that we've incorporated that Strand already does in there? So there's nothing else for us to do on it?
When you have experience with a particular entity that's bidding, and it's a bad experience and maybe a repeated bad experience, you can incorporate that into the decision you make as to who you award the bid to, even if someone, the irresponsible bidder is a little lower. So that's something that you take into account over time, but it's more of a case-by-case, contractor-by-contractor.
And we have that in our language for.
Well, just this, in how you choose who to award the bid to, that's inherent in that process. It doesn't say lowest bidder, it says lowest responsible bidder.
Right.
And so you have the ability to be, to declare someone irresponsible, I guess, is the best way to say it.
And and I'm asking because I don't remember, did we ever define responsible or at this point?
I don't recall.
I know we have looked at that before.
Yeah, I don't really recall. I mean, there's a whole thing on what they have to provide
Okay,
the village to show that they're responsible. So there's a whole list of materials that they show as part of that. A lot of What we have in our standard was what you included as part of that full handout. You had
Okay.
you had a
Right.
document, yeah. It's very similar to that same thing where all the documentation and the follow-up that they have to provide to show that they are the, responsible bidder.
But you guys were already doing.
We already do.
So that's good.
Yeah, yeah,
So, all
that's,
right.
yeah, that's pretty common, yeah. I try to get that in your documents.
It's not as common as you think.
Right. Well, we've been doing that for quite a while. So it's
Good.
it's common to us, I should
Right,
say.
good.
Yeah,
Yes. Well, thank you for coming tonight
yeah.
again.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Circling back to the pickleball. Do we know who's going to do the tennis courts at Bakken next year? Is it the same people? It's not-
So, yeah,
No
that,
RFP yet.
that project isn't designed or bid yet, so.
Okay.
And it's interesting we get into the responsible bidder thing, because a prime will bid on that, and this is a sub. So this sub will likely never, this sub isn't gonna be a prime bidder. And a lot of the responsible bidders is directed towards the prime. And Larry, I'm not sure if I've run into the case where you've tried to restrict a sub. You can go back afterwards and ask the prime what subs are you using. Usually you get a list. And if there's somebody on there you may want to switch out, you can request that. But I believe a lot of that language states that if you do, they have a right to adjust a number then. Because, they get a separate person to come in, and maybe it's a couple $1,000s extra that you need to pick up that cost if they go and get that. I haven't run into that a lot, Larry.
I have, in a dealing with like Hamburg, right? In this case, if Hamburg bids and is the lowest bidder for the Bakken work, I've had situations where we've said to that prime contractor, you're not gonna use so-and-so again, otherwise you're not a responsible bidder. And again, some of that you exercise your leverage in whatever way you choose, right? And so if it rose to the level where we didn't really want them using that entity again, we would have that conversation before the contract was let. But, again, I don't think that, I haven't been involved since the beginning, but I'm not sure that this entity is one you'd even want to avoid. It's just a mistake.
Yeah, I agree with you, Larry. I think it's more of a mistake than a,
Disqualification
yeah,
in the
or an
future.
occurrence that happens over and over with these
Right.
specifically.
I mean, they're warranting the work for 5 years
Yeah.
now. I mean, like,
Right.
to me, that's like okay, you're still on the good list. I mean, they fessed up to it, they owned up to it, and then on their own dime, fix it, and they're gonna, warranty it. So I think that's more than enough, to stay in the good graces, in my opinion.
In many cases, you find that when that happens, it's two strikes and you're out, and they've already got one. There's a lot more focus and attention paid, especially for a particular client, that sometimes you get your best work out of the people who made the last mistake. So it's a little hard to know what, if there's not a track record. You might check references a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we could do that, moving into next year, you could check references more and just see if there's been anything like this again that's happened, but it's something to consider as you move forward, yeah, for sure.
All
Thank
right.
you.
This is
Thanks.
Heidi.
Hey,
Hi.
Oh, hi Heidi, sorry.
Oh, hi. No, I'll try to be brief, but I get a front row seat to see you guys in action, Plan Commission, Parks, and Public Works. So I've got trifecta working with you. And I just wanted to say I appreciate all the thorough explanations and discussions and engagements with committee members and residents and the board to really explain what we're looking at, what options we have, and guide us in how to proceed. So I appreciate all the expertise you bring to the table and look forward to working with you in a quieter year. You definitely didn't just hit the ground running, but sprinting with all of our projects last year. So thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right, next up is discuss the appointment process for filling an open village board position. So Melissa has put in her resignation. She's got a few other things going I first of all would like to thank you for all you've done for the board and your engagement, and over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with you quite a bit, so thank you, Melissa, from me. So part of that discussion then leads us into this item, which is how do we fill these big shoes? Then there's a number of options, and I'll run through them, and Larry will correct me if I get them wrong. First of all, we can leave this spot open. That would be open until the term is up, which would be 2024. We can have a special election. We can add it to the spring election, or we can appoint through the board workings, and we've done that before. So in discussions with Rick, I think that last one is most appropriate, being that we're gonna have a busy spring, and the spot is open until 24. So, but I leave that up to the board and let Larry correct what I just said.
There was nothing incorrect in what you said. How you do it, if you decide to go ahead with an appointment, we have communities do it in a lot of different ways. Usually there's a communications effort to seek interested people. Sometimes people just go grab the last person that was off, for a few months, and you can do it in any number of different ways. But if you decide to, the first decision would be, well, do you want to appoint someone? And if you do, then you should talk a little bit about how you're going to generate sort of the list and go through that process, how you'll appoint.
All right, so the first part of that then is whether or not we want to go through the appointment process, or do we want to explore any of those other options I kind of laid out real quickly.
I think we should have an appointment.
Yeah. Okay. And then,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I agree with David. I think we should have an appointment, and I think it should just be posted or somehow open for folks to apply it. I don't want it to be by invitation only, I guess,
Yeah.
to be appointed.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Just a quick history lesson. That's actually how I got on the board in 2015. So it can happen, and you may still be here after a few years. So in that process and subsequent processes, when we did have an appointment piece, we went through an interview piece. We did let the community know, had interested parties submit a letter of interest, however format they would chose, and then basically did an interview panel with the board, and then the board decided if there were multiple candidates, who they thought would be the best fit. That's how we've done it in the past. I'm up for anything. Anyone else has a different scenario, but that's a little bit of a history on this.
I guess the question would be timeline.
Get it moving, I think, based on your date.
Yeah, and you can start the process of asking people to express interest and submit a letter of interest, and make it simple. It's like an RFP, but it's
Yep.
yeah, who are you and why are you interested in being on the board?
Yeah.
You can't actually appoint someone until after the resignation, but there's no reason why you can't. As long as the resignation is public, you can say, there will be a vacancy as of December 16th, is it?
Yeah.
And please submit your letter of interest. Have everyone come into a meeting, just have them come up and answer questions, and easy. Unless there's about 40 people, and then it's not as easy.
That's not easy.
And there's nothing wrong with recruiting or nudging
Yeah,
people, or,
sure.
there's no.
Twisting arms, whatever.
I'm thinking in my 7 years, we've done it, in the village, we've done it twice since I've lived here.
There was
2 or 3 times, I think.
John was appointed. There was there was an appointment in 2017 and one in 2018 and then one in 2019.
Yeah.
So how long, I guess what I'm getting at is, do we need a special session? Do you want to do it during a regular stated meeting?
We've done it in the regular stated meeting in the past, just because that's a good cadence, and then you give people enough time. get people.
When's the second meeting in December?
December 19th, so,
Yeah.
I mean, if you allowed people to submit, I mean, even up until that meeting, they could, they could be theoretically up in front of you on the 19th if you guys wanted to do it that night, and you wouldn't even have to make a decision that night. You could,
You could, though.
yeah, you could interview people and make a decision that night, and I think we've seen it where literally make that decision, and the next agenda item that individual is sitting at the table here.
Yeah.
Works for me.
And if there's others that are interested, there's 4 open spots in the spring.
Which is another reason to maybe not go with a special election.
Yeah,
Right.
There's enough.
yeah. We don't want that kind of.
Well, not only that, it'd be
'Cause
another
those cost
4 or
money.
5 months before they.
Actually,
What's that, Chris? Do you have a question or?
No, he was just saying it might be better than a special election, but our election at the same time. I was just saying if we did an election at the same time, it'd be another 4 or 5 months before that person's on board.
Way too
Yeah.
much on our plate to wait
Yeah.
that long.
Yeah.
and Lisa does too.
How much is a special, I'm just curious, how much is a special election for one seat? That'd be a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot of cost with it. If you did it outside of the election cycle, you're talking programming of the machines, which is done by Dane County, the printing of ballots, which when we do it in conjunction with the election, it's obviously cheaper because it's spread out amongst other entities, because we do a joint ballot in most, if they can,
Sure.
depending. And then you would have your poll workers and all your expenses, because you're essentially doing a full-fledged election for one
For
seat.
one seat.
Yeah,
We'll do an appointment.
yeah.
So I guess appointment December 19th?
It seems reasonable to give people enough time unless board members have a different opinion.
Is there, if we're gonna talk about it, is that an open session thing or a closed session thing?
Open.
You mean we have to talk about people in an open session?
Maybe probably right in front of them, too. Everybody's
I
big.
knew the answer, I just said, I had to ask.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I was just wondering, making sure that we have options for letting this be known to lots of channel, outside of just social media, because not everyone's on social media, so I just want to make sure we reach as many people as possible.
I know Gabe's on the call, but I mean, we'll do a news alert on our website. Anyone that signed up for notifications would see it there, as well as just going on the site. And then, I think we'd be certainly letting everyone know that the consideration would be on the 19th, but there doesn't have to necessarily be a deadline to apply. It's essentially open until filled. And I was just going through my notes here. It looks like we've done this 4 times since I've been here, at least. And as far as the questions, how we've handled it is really board members can ask any question you want, and then Lisa or all of us can try to keep track of those questions that we asked to the first person, and we just ask the same questions to the second, third, and onward.
Can we post something at like Piggly Wiggly or something too on their board?
Yeah, we can do whatever. We'll just have to know what you guys want us to do.
And the press usually picks that up too.
Yeah.
It's not something you gotta pay, for a notice. It's usually a story.
Relationship with Will, so I can help talk to him too.
Gabe, you're in the tunnel.
Yeah.
You're in the bad part of it.
He's either in the echo chamber or the tunnel. Poor guy.
We need to move the teams or something. I think
Yeah.
that's
I think what he said is he's got a relationship with the newspaper. He can reach out. And certainly encourage board members to reach. Sorry, go ahead, Gabe. No, he's really lost. Just encourage the board members to reach out to, others, your network, to let folks know. Any other questions about appointment?
I was just going to add, John, JJ and I will meet with Gabe. We'll get something drafted to the board as far as how we're putting it out there, and then if there's, additional things that you guys want us to do, just let us know, and we'll take care of it.
All right, thanks, Matt. All right, reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. First up is Plan Commission. And we have a discuss and consider a site plan application from Superior Structures for an approximately 15,000 square foot office building located at 201 Commerce Parkway, and Superior is here. Superior. Where did I get Superior? Oh, my kid goes there.
Good evening, Dan Burtler, Supreme Structures. Thank you.
Gotta pull it towards there. There you go.
Good evening, Dan Burtler, representative Supreme Structures. Here for any questions or comments. I believe Aaron might have received the revised set of plans with all the updated notes from Strand, as well as all the other comments. The one comment that we might not have addressed would be the rooftop unit screening, but would screen any type of rooftop units on the units. Looking forward for approval tonight. I think we addressed all the architectural, all the plan commission notes throughout the latest set of revisions, and looking at moving forward with a developer agreement in December and starting construction in spring with approval tonight. And here with any questions if you have any.
Dan, can you just share what the building purpose is for?
Yes, we're looking at we have a two-phase building. One is the first phase of 15,000 square feet. That will encompass, currently they're doing a studio off-site in the city of Madison to do all their video programming. We'll be relocating that studio to the Village of Cottage Grove. The other project is I'm gonna call it the wow statement for all their equipment. So they're really gonna be bringing in people throughout the world to look at their equipment in Cottage Grove and see it firsthand versus at Johnson Health itself. We still have some I's to dot and T's to cross, but we're working in the correct direction to get this reality to extend their campus. Their second phase encompass a 5,000 square foot gymnasium with a mezzanine, which would be part of an employee benefit. And we're also looking at additional parking through this area which would alleviate a lot of their parking issues. If you ever went to Johnson Health currently today, it's an issue. Even I could not even find a parking spot to even meet with them. So it's an extension of the campus. Architecturally, it does not match 100% of their existing building, but we feel that what we came up with tonight was a design that is a little bit more modern, that fits the campus and still does not lose their Johnson Health identity.
All right. Aaron, you want to add in, and then we'll ask the board to
Yeah,
kick in?
I don't have too much to add. As Dan said, they've been kind of bursting at the seams over there for a while, so this is a good fit for the park, good-looking building for the location. And Dan's company was going to be the builder of the previously approved project for that site that's not moving forward, so good that Dan kind of stepped in and generated this other project. As Dan said, they have submitted the drawings just a couple hours ago. We haven't gone through them yet, but we'll double check these conditions have been met, but we did have a few conditions for approval. From a planning point of view, having them provide the full engineering set, which is what they sent over tonight, verifying that the bioinfiltration pond is in a location that's suitable for achieving the necessary infiltration results. As Dan mentioned, for the Commerce Park covenants, you have to screen any rooftop units, so once they're far enough along in the design process to know where those are going, we'll verify that. the driveway widths they had shown on the original drawings were wider than our ordinance allowed, so they're adjusting that. Then the ARC did add another condition. They were wanting curb and gutter on the driveway coming in from Landmark Drive. And then Strand had a few conditions too. I don't know if there are any you want to touch on, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, ours was just more complete civil set, some grading stuff, some stormwater stuff, utility plans, things like that. Dan, we haven't had a chance since you sent it here tonight to review it all, but we were in contact several times. JT called up and had been back and forth with correspondence, so they were working through it. As part of the first submittal, there was nothing that jumped out that we were overly worried about that they wouldn't be able to achieve. It was just providing more detail and getting it to the level that we can approve it overall in an engineering standpoint. So, yeah, I think there was one discussion about access too, right, along Commerce Parkway, and where that access would align, and it is, I think, lining up with the access across the other side of the street. So they kind of align too, which is good to kind of have those accesses kind of line up to some degree.
And we're excited to be back in Village of Cottage Grove.
We are too as well. Any questions from board members?
I'll do a motion to approve the site plan review application with staff conditions.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brittany. Any further discussion?
I did have some questions, Aaron. Did you say these conditions are already being worked through? Like most of them have been addressed? Or?
We actually addressed, I would say 99.9% of them, and emailed Aaron and Strand everything as of today as 4 o'clock. My JT engineering was a little like, are you kidding me? 2 weeks to address these? And I said, get it done.
Right.
So we're ready to go.
Cool. I just wanted to note it here, in the action report, Heidi did mention like the importance of safe crossing conditions. Was there any work done on that or any thoughts put on that? I mean, I get it, we're adults, we know how to use a crosswalk.
You know, we have crosswalks, we align the driveways. There's always so much we can do. I can definitely go back to Johnson Health and say, hey, if you have patrons that go from point A to point B, can you at least instruct them to follow the rules of the guidelines of the sidewalks? But I don't know what else I can do on the parcel.
I think it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
Yep.
I think it's one of those things that, so coming from, I'm trying to think direction here. So coming east, right, towards, so from Oakstone east, right? Like that tends to be a little bit more of a drag race, right? So like, there's different points of the day where that's kind of a concern, right? I think that, I guess traffic heading west, right, is always a concern. I think heading east, not so much, but that, during lunchtime, that can be a really busy area. It'll kind of.
I don't disagree. I think the biggest thing about this expansion is not so much about the gymnasium, because that, like I said, that most likely is going to be a phase 2. I'd love to do it in phase 1 because of efficiencies. But I think really the reality of this is to add the additional parking, to do the wow statement and bring economic development into Cottage Grove, and 3, to get their off-site studio on site, onto the campus.
Sure.
I don't think anyone ever toured their existing studio. It's interesting. I'm not quite sure how they film in there, but they do. And so this really just brings their last domino to the actual package.
Okay. Aaron, is there anything we could do about traffic or JJ?
I think
in
we see-
Jamaica, we call them sleeping policemen, where you can just do a bump, but that's in Jamaica.
Yeah, I think a lot of the traffic at that intersection is either going north to Quick Trip and Summit or south to Culver's and Jimmy John's and Dolphin Swim Academy. And not crossing through, I mean, there's some of that, but not as much. So I think that's probably the safest place to cross at that intersection. It's, you know, the people that are crossing are probably doing it first thing in the morning or at the end of the day and not back and forth all day. You know, the ones that are going to lunch are doing that now anyway. So.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, there's not enough traffic there to warrant a stoplight, you know, and then, I don't know. I have a lot of residents come to me concerned about just traffic in general, right, and not watching pedestrians, and, you know, I run a lot in the village, and there's not a lot of people pay attention, right? Everybody's staring at their phone, so.
At the Plan Commission, I suggested Lisa find them a crossing guard, but she didn't like that.
I mean, we'll definitely pass our comments on to Johnson Health. That, it was a concern.
Definitely, I mean, I want to know, like, I definitely support the project, like, don't want to stand in the way. I think it's more of a village conversation, right? Like, there's just a ton of concern around pedestrian traffic and bike traffic.
Agreed.
You know, as all of Dane County, if not the entire state, it's an issue, but, no, I'm definitely glad to see this, you know, a project on this plot. It's super exciting, and I've had some friends work with you, and so, you know, definitely look forward to you being in the village more often, and really, really excited about the project.
Awesome.
One other additional piece here, Dan mentioned a development agreement, so there's still one more step, because this site is actually a site of another project that just isn't going to come to fruition. And so a lot of credit to Dan to pivot from that and be proactive and find another project for the village. So, you know, we appreciate that and happy to have you.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion then? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Dan. All right, other things covered in Plan Commission were just a couple, no formal action to be taken. One was the Zilber Property Group with a concept plan for a 70-acre light industrial development north of where Amazon has proposed on Highway N there in the Commerce Park in the TID number 10. And there were a few questions for Zilber, but very favorable from a commission perspective. I believe Zilber had their neighborhood discussion last Monday.
Yeah, it went very well. They had maybe a dozen or so people and some good questions. And they've already submitted for the December meetings.
Okay, so we'll see him again. And then the other presentation was from Peter Miller for a concept plan for a 5-unit residential on 228 North Main Street. Again, for feedback only, some questions and feedback for Peter from the commission, but again, favorable. So that was those are the two items also covered here at the Plan Commission. Any questions there? Otherwise, I'll move right on to ad hoc. The ad hoc Architectural Review Committee met on the 10th. We covered Supreme structures, which was just discussed. Had a few items, including talking about how people walk and get across the street there, and a few other items of curb and such, but again, approved from that committee as well. Pier Court, David.
Sure. We met Tuesday, November 15th. Briar Patch came and gave an update. They've had 3 youths to date since our last meeting, although 3 more were sent over just that day. They called to set up circle dates for the new cases, and things overall are going really well. Youth crime is extraordinarily low and stays pretty low in the village, and everything's going really well. So we close the meeting, and next meeting is Tuesday, January 17th.
All right. Next up, tourism.
We didn't have it because there was no quorum, but our next one is December 21st, which I won't be at. So you might want to find a replacement trustee so that you guys can meet on the 21st.
Yes, that was on my list, but now it's going to get moved up the list. Thank you, Melissa, because we can't have two in a row. Parks, Heidi, are you still with us?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we met last week on Wednesday, the 16th, and the first item we talked about was the draft bike and pedestrian comprehensive plan, which the Public Works Department has been working on. So since a lot of our bike infrastructure also has to do with parks, we wanted to have a discussion there. So I think that's probably going to come through the board soon, make it out a draft. It'll be kind of a working document that we can continue to update, but lay out kind of our goals, what we want to do regarding bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Then we talked about outstanding balances and ActiveNet. So Sean can go into this in some more detail, but basically it's some very old balances that Trista has been working very hard to reconcile and recover, but there's some old ones that basically we're asking to write off our sheets, and I think Sean and Cameron have worked on that together, so there's a memo and information in your packet. If there's additional information either of you want to cover, I guess I'd welcome you to jump in.
No, I think Heidi hit it. We've recovered about 10,000 to 16 that's been owed back to 2015, and some of those folks aren't around anymore, and they're certainly not going to pony up $30 for a program, even if they are. So we're paying much closer attention to that stuff now moving forward, and we've kind of had the policy that if money is owed, you have to pay up before you can register for a new program.
Any other questions regarding that one or parks in general? Otherwise, there's discuss and consider for the outstanding balances.
So is the motion to, what with the outstanding balances?
Probably moving to write off.
I'll move to write off the outstanding balances in ActiveNet.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Is there a second? Thanks, Brittany. Any further discussion?
I'll just say that I appreciate us making sure that we are more proactive with that so that we don't have the large outstanding balances going forward. And appreciate Trista's work in recouping what she has.
Cameron, for the uninitiated, what is a
write-off? So when you write off a balance, basically when you sign up for your activity, let's say it's a $50 activity, that really becomes an accounts receivable until we collect it. It sits on the balance sheet. So when you bring this to the board to be written off, you basically say, well, we're not going to be able to collect this revenue, so we need to take it to the board and write off or eliminate that balance owed to us.
Is that when you said if someone has a outstanding balance due, they won't be able to apply for another be in another program? That would not include these, right? These are just gone. Moving forward. That's moving forward.
Correct.
Okay.
She's basically what's left are people that Trista can't get a hold of.
Right, and if you looked at the sheet, it goes back away as 2015-ish. So yeah, no response from all of those people. She's reached out to everybody.
And how much time did she spend on?
It was good, busy work in COVID days. Yeah. Right.
So about a year's worth of time trying to get.
Not steady, obviously, but yes.
So it doesn't really make sense to continue to keep looking or trying to.
No. And as I said, we started with like 10 pages and we're down to a couple. So it's been good.
All right, any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next up is the library board. David.
Thanks. We all met Thursday, November 17th. Got together, and UW Civil Engineering capstone undergraduate students came and gave a really lengthy presentation. They did an absolutely fantastic presentation. There were two gentlemen from the UW. According to JJ, I put them through the ringer. I thought it was just, fair, honest feedback. No, I thought it was more of a conversation, but apparently I was a little rough on them. They were good sports about it. They did a really good job.
Yeah, and they're not coming back.
They
No,
won't be applying for the trustee spot, huh?
they were actually they were really good sports about it. They did an absolutely fantastic job. Can't say enough good things about them. You know, I think I mistakenly thought that they were part of the university program that we were in, and actually Cindy had actually found these students through the engineering program and kind of signed us up for this project. So it was a really, really cool, and shout out to Cindy for really spending a lot of time with these students. And I think there were 4 total students. 2 of them were able to make the presentation to us, and then they have a final presentation. It's all part of their capstone project. You know, again, I can't say enough good things. They talked about kind of design. They talked about, they actually walked the site. They talked about solar. They talked about different building materials. It was a real education even for me. You know, and some of and then we kind of collectively opened everybody's eyes up to some of the realities of building a building such as this. So from there we moved on to the discussing the 2023 goals. In that section, really focused on kind of the budget and kind of some of the realities that are facing us. There was a lengthy conversation around where the 2023 funds are earmarked or which account they're going to be in, and it's going to be part of Parks and Rec. And there was some concern from the library board how much or how little the library board may be involved. So there was a conversation about potentially making a motion, a discussion item at a future meeting in this body to talk about ensuring that the library board is involved with the funding. So ideally, it's to ensure the library board is involved. Really, everything library is involved with the library board, and then also ensuring, more than anything, that there's consistent communication and marketing from the library board. So wanted to have kind of a quick discussion around that. I know there isn't a discuss and consider. There is one tonight a little later on, but did want to kind of discuss how the village board felt so that I could report back to the library board about any concerns they might have in terms of involvement.
In the programming or
In the programming, correct.
I think they'd be quite involved. That's what Sean had indicated when it was brought up. So I don't know why that wouldn't even be a question, I guess.
I think I expressed that same sentiment, but I think the library board would rather have a motion to ensure that there is involvement. And again, knowing, and JJ made it very clear that Sean was like, I'll take all the help I can get, and you know, I don't have not, and I'm speaking for you here, but you're like, you don't have subject matter expertise in library program, whereas the library board does have library experts, programming experts. We're very, I mean, Tracy's runs the Friends of the Library, so I think just to help everybody involved, just kind of make sure that we're all on the same page, is to have kind of a formal declaration that the library board be involved.
Can I just get a clarification? The 15,000 that's going for programming for the library board, isn't that the library board's then to spend? Or?
No.
No.
It's Parks and Rec. It's
part
in
of-
Parks and Rec fund.
But it's going to go to McFarland, to whoever the library board chooses to put the programming on. So it's not going to Parks and Rec, it's going to whatever entity is brought in. I know that in the past it's been McFarland, but there may be other libraries, local libraries, or other entities that the library board chooses that would make sense for this programming. And I assume at the beginning of January, we'd get, what's the plan, and, you know, let's line it up and let's get it, probably before then, let's get this going.
And I had to ask for clarification from the library board. I thought the concern was like, and I'm gonna go disaster scenario here, so Sean, don't take this personally, but like, Sean was gonna take that 15 grand and spend it on pickleball or something completely unrelated to the library. And the library was very clear, that's really not their concern. I think everybody understands in good faith, Sean is gonna be like, this is for library, you know, activities. But I think it was, you know, and I asked very clear, concise questions to the library board. Is that what you're worried about, or what's the concern? It's more around the communication piece and ensuring that when email blasts go out or Facebook posts go out, that it matches the look and feel that, the communications that the Friends of the Library is putting out, so that the library board and the Friends match. And again, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. There's some more discussion around look and feel, and ensuring that the library board, can control the message. Controlling in a good way. I don't think that comes off wrong, but I think you guys know what I mean.
I mean, the way it was motioned, Sean couldn't use it for anything but
Yeah.
Library programming, and I would think I mean, we can make it clear right now that he would need to go for approval at the library board for whatever and they can decide on what the programming is.
Yeah, that's how I understood it.
Really, from my standpoint, I mean, it's more about, first thing is figuring out exactly what this means for our department, and, yeah, I'm gonna defer everything to them as far as, because you hit it on the head, we don't have the expertise in this area. And anything that we can facilitate that we don't actually have to program, that's a great deal for us. So it's really, we're excited to figure out what it is that they want from us and how we can help.
Okay. JJ, any thoughts? No? Okay. Then Sean, I'd recommend when we have our next library board meeting, if I could ask you to come, and then we can have a conversation, about that. Because
To that point, the village board has to approve any of the invoices before we run the check run. Similarly to any type of programming expense, those expenditures can be brought before the library board for approval. If that would help any concerns.
And Cameron will have an account especially for library-related expenses so that it doesn't get into all the other accounts.
Yeah, it's definitely not communal. It's in a separate fund entirely.
Keep them out.
Does that work, Cindy? Okay. Cool. Moving on, then we talked about formation of a policy committee. And this has actually got the old library meeting. Actually, yeah, so we discussed and considered the policy committee, and then we talked about what's in our packet tonight, was the discuss and consider $200 to promote local and pro ad spec for graphic design of the library timelines to be used at outreach starting December 17th. So Cindy has put together a timeline of all the activities that have happened to date. Promote local and pro ad spec will help us kind of put it in a look and feel that matches a lot of what the Friends are putting out, and it matches the look and feel, and they're just better at this work than we are. So we would need $200 to do that. That was not in the budget for this fiscal year. So that's what's up for discuss and consider tonight.
So is the timeline in the past, or is it timeline in the future?
It's outlining what we've done to date. It's going to be used for outreach activities to
Okay,
help,
so
to help
today,
people.
because we don't know what the future is, because we got
Correct.
to figure out the prioritization,
Correct.
which design we might want to choose, and where's that going to line in the debt capacity, everything.
Yep.
Questions, comments regarding this discuss and consider for the board?
I just kind of wanted to echo a little bit what John just mentioned. So we're talking about today, because a lot of work has been done already, but yeah, the future, like we're exploring where we're going to go and what timeline we can go in it, and due to financial constraints. So I guess it's good to show where we've been, but yeah, I guess that's my biggest concern. We don't know exactly what the timeline looks like, so that was my biggest question.
If you look on the website, there is an older timeline. Let's see if I can share my screen here in a second. We're updating that timeline.
So that's what the $200 would be going to
Correct.
for?
To redo the graphic.
Correct. And Cindy did most of the work. It could have been much more than that, but Cindy helped us out. And yeah, if you go to the homepage of the library, actually, I'll just share my screen because I'm on the meeting.
And who is pro ad spec? Haven't heard of them before.
You work with Promote Local. So we're updating this graphic right here.
So is it present? Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You mean you don't have your cheaters
I don't want to speak 100%
No,
for Gabe, but I mean, if that's all that needs to be updated, he can do that. Correct, Gabe?
Yeah, can you guys hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I tried something new and it didn't work. We have all the tools necessary to do this. I am more than happy to create anything that the library board would need.
So
This wouldn't be very hard.
Looks like you get to join Sean at the next library board meeting.
Sean would love that.
The thing is, we need it by the 17th.
That's totally fine.
What's that, Cindy? Yeah, it just goes up to current state. There's nothing future state.
Yeah,
There's nothing
I see
moving
that
in.
now. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're updating this to be more, for all the work that we've done since this was last updated.
So, just so that I understand with the $200 for Promote Local and ProEd Spec to do the graphic design, would they be working with anybody? Like, would they be working with the library board, or do they?
Yeah.
But you guys, when do you meet next? Or would they just be reaching out to, like, you, Cindy?
Just to Cindy.
Okay, so if Gabe is offering to do it, then you could work with him instead? And if not, if that doesn't work, then you guys could come back at the December 5th meeting?
I mean, I could suggest, you guys could approve the two,
I'd say we could
you could
approve
approve
this
it conditionally.
with Gabe.
That you could first try to work with Gabe on it, and if not, then pivot to this option.
I like that option.
Yeah.
Then we're not the one standing in the way.
And the 200 would come from where? If we went that way? General fund?
Okay.
Is that
Cash.
our
More
reserve?
because Matt, you and I did talk about this.
Yes, it would come from reserves. There's not a specific spot I would put it. Just with where inflation's at this year, a lot of things are going to be pretty close, if not over budget. So there's not a specific bucket I would say to amend it from. It'd just be, we're already kind of going to run into a deficit this year, just increasing the deficit by $200.
And like, I'm not averse to spending the $200. It's just that I don't know these two companies, and if our communications person is able to do the work, then I feel more comfortable with that. Is why I've been asking the questions.
We worked with Promote Local a couple years ago. For the video.
And then I guess, is this something that the Friends didn't want to do, or is it because it's library board specific? And then, but that's also, Promote Local is a company that the Friends of the Library works with. So Cindy was saying that, that there's an event that the Friends are having, or the library board is having? There's going to be an event on December 17th that they want this timeline for, with consistent messaging between the Friends and the library board going forward, which is why these two companies are part of this. So, that's for your benefit, Heidi, in case you didn't hear.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you summarized. Thanks.
So I guess what I heard is then I will make a motion for the library board to work with our communications director on the library board timeline to, for the graphic design and, then did you guys say that we could, or work with, promote local?
I'd mod it a little, I would say, make a motion to approve the $200 to promote local and pro-ed spec for graphic design of the library board timelines to be used at outreach starting December 17th if the director of communications cannot provide what the library board is looking for.
But who makes the determination that?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
That would be the library board. Library board president.
But they need it by December 17th, so if it's done if the attempt is made before December 5th and it doesn't work, then they can come back at that point. It can be back on the agenda for discussion.
But that's assuming that promote local and pro-ed spec do it by the 17th then.
That would be 11 days, 10 days.
That's, because the 5th is done, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I mean, $200 is not a lot for a graphic design, I would assume. So, and plus if they've been doing the work already, they just have to put it together. I assume. I'm not a Canva person, so I don't know.
I mean, they're not going to use Canva, that's for sure.
Well, sure.
I mean, yeah.
But so now we're in this spot where next year we haven't approved anything for the library board for any, not programming, but operate or office or those types of funds. So if our communications person isn't able to do these little things, then we're gonna be nickeling and diming the next year. So I don't think that it necessarily hurts to start having our in-house person hopefully being able to work on these things as it will. I mean, that's why we have staff to help with these things, and it reduces costs as well.
Okay.
And we kind of we now have two motions kind of sitting out there.
No, yours is first.
Yours is first.
Floating.
Yours is first. No,
You were just suggesting.
yeah, I was just suggesting, I wasn't actually making the motion.
But then I don't have a second yet.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Okay, David second.
I don't know if my motion was ever finished.
It was,
Yeah.
it's good enough for
What
who
did I
it's
say,
for.
Lisa?
Good enough for go.
I was like,
No, it's perfect, I think.
To approve the library board to work with communication manager for the timeline of the graphic design and timeline to be used for outreach starting December 17th.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next up is Deer Grove EMS Commission. Brittany. I'll jump in if you want me to, but.
It was pretty easy. Whoops, I just have to go to the agenda. So Deer Grove EMS District meeting was Thursday, November 17th. John was in for Sarah. There's no public appearances. Went over financial reports. No aging or write-offs of accounts. Chief gave the staff report. This was a really fast meeting, I think. I think we were only there for like half hour. There was 2 correspondents. I forget what they were for. I think they're just thank yous.
They were thank yous.
Yeah. At the night of the meeting, we did not hear about the Flex grant, but then Chief emailed the next day and that we got Flex grant approval for everything. which was really good, because they already spent some of the money. Village of Cottage Grove is the first municipality to approve the intergovernmental agreement. It's on the town's agenda for tonight. It's on Deerfield for next Monday,
No, I think they meet on
or on the 28th.
Tuesdays. Don't they meet on
It's
Tuesdays?
yeah, it's different.
So I think it's next Tuesday, I believe.
Village of Deerfield meets on Monday, so the 28th.
Oh, they do. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir. Trust Brittany, she's doing a good job so far.
All right.
Thanks, Chief.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
And then, that was, I mean, and then we adjourned. Quick thing. No.
The new ambulance, I'll steal Chief's
Oh, yeah.
thunder, is, I believe, on its way. They had a little snafu with a plug or something like that that had to get shipped in, so we couldn't take it when we wanted to, which was weeks and months ago.
I feel like I could have walked.
Yeah, well, it's that supply chain dilemma. Chief, anything, since you're on, anything else that we didn't cover?
Sorry, I was looking up AFG, thinking that someone was gonna ask me about that as well, and no news there. Only thing I would add is that with the snapshot report, that our calls are trending up, and we've actually been, busier in the month of November than the majority of the year, so we're gonna end up, I would suspect, in the 1,400 call range, and other than that, hoping to see our ambulance Wednesday. Still waiting to receive one of the parts, but it's a plug and then deliver it to us part. So there'll be fanfare, huge parties, carnival rides, everything at the station when the ambulance finally gets here.
All right, thanks, Chief. Any questions on EMS? All right, moving that on to reports from village officers, village attorney. Larry, anything? All right.
Larry, I have a question. It came up during the library board meeting, the budget surplus currently, and it's the $6 billion, I think is the state's currently sitting on. Is there any movement now that the election's over around what to do with that budget surplus?
Sure, every single entity that's funded in any part by state funding is asking for more. Putting a number of my clients. There's some talk about municipal funding, some changes to that is very interesting.
It was brought up
Significant, like real ideas.
Sure. It was brought up by a library board member that we should, as a body, should be doing more to lobby to do something with those funds.
A lot of people doing just that.
Any recommendations or thoughts on a resolution from this body?
In what?
In terms of trying to motivate the State House to do something?
And to do what? For libraries or for municipal funding or
Yes.
for?
Yes.
I don't think, I mean, I think that you're better off to work with your state representatives.
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder who that might be.
Truly, I mean, a resolution is
Yep.
still got to be carried and, translated into statewide,
And the league is pushing for funding too, for all municipalities. They have been for a long time, but they're really championing that right now as well.
Yeah,
for
shared
us.
revenue is a really big thing that
Yeah.
is being pushed, and the governor wants to, is going to include more from what I hear, but whether it makes it to the final.
Question.
Yeah, what was interesting apparently is that legislators had to have their budget requests in today.
legislators of a certain party.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
Wow.
great, fun. But I do think that I have a list of things that I will be talking with others about and the governor regarding the surplus. And hopefully helping our community as well as other municipalities.
Thoughts and prayers.
Maybe more library funding would be good.
Thank you, Larry.
All right. Gabe, anything from you? Can we hear you still?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So last meeting, I brought this for you for the FY23 residential feedback survey. I had just asked for any comments and feedback. Melissa did offer the one for any additional services that residents would like to provide. I added that to the, I believe, end of the survey. So tonight, if there's any other, unless there's any other comments, we're just asking for approval of the survey with the ability to make any amendments, minor amendments, or adjustments if needed prior to when we release it.
It's extensive, and I think it would provide a lot of good baseline for us to work from, so from that perspective. I don't know if other board members have comments.
The open-ended question at the end is like the reward for somebody to make it through the whole
It is long.
question to then give their opinion at the end, so.
So the way we structured it, because it is long, the first couple questions about demographics are mandatory, and then they can answer anything about village services that they wish. None of that is, so if they really want to focus on public works or Parks and Rec, they can. And so I think that was a good compromise because of its length to be able to work around that.
Matt, you had a comment?
Just to the point at the end of the memo, in the recommendation there, just that staff will be doing, over the next several weeks, plus just some additional, quality control on it. We may make some edits and changes and things like that, where we would certainly let the board know if there's some suggested added questions, or if we would suggest taking anything out. But for the most part, I think the general content is what we're looking to approve tonight, but we'd want some ability, if we notice typos, better ways to word things, we'll be working on that over the next month or so.
I guess, Gabe, one question I have is, the ward map is really small. I'm just curious how you're gonna, I'm just trying to think, like, how much stock can you put in that question if I know what ward I'm in, but I'm an Uber geek. What happens if you're not an Uber geek and you're wrong, if I guess wrong, or if I fat finger it?
So it's a little bit bigger when you're actually doing the Survey Monkey on the computer, but really a rough estimate is what I'm looking for. There's going to be people who don't live in the village that'll probably find the way to answer the survey, and that's okay. Really what I'm looking for with that ward map is to be able to find similarities and differences with data for, like, say, Ward 2 really thinks their streets are being plowed great, but Ward 9 feels like they aren't. Trying to find those data variances and really doing those analytics. So this is the first time we're doing it, so again, there's going to be some minor adjustments for next year, but yeah, we're trying it out.
Okay, one piece of feedback I would give you is that majority of computing these day and ages happens on a mobile device rather than a computer, so I would recommend that you test it on an iPad and or a phone.
Yep, and SurveyMonkey changes the survey automatically to do it on the phone.
I just recommend, because they can give you tools in the web, but I would recommend to test it on your own phone.
Yep.
I guess the other question I had would be, like, the questions around gender and race and ethnicity. I'm just, like, as I go through some of these, and then you have some of these Likert scales, like, there's a very real possibility of, like, survey fatigue, like, as you get through this. And again, I think you guys are aware of that, but it's just, there's an awful lot in the survey. And I think are there hypotheses you're trying to test, or kind of like how did all these questions come about?
You were breaking up a little bit on your microphone, but most of these surveys are generic ones through municipalities, trying to figure out what are, again, analytics, what are different, it's like single-family houses, duplexes, apartments, what are they saying about roads or streets or parks? And so, but Matt, if there was another part of that question that I didn't hear, let me know.
No, but Gabe, I think you answered the question. I think it's just, this is our first swag at it, so we'll just have to take a shot at it, see what happens.
Yep.
I will move to approve the FY23 residential feedback survey with minor staff edits as needed.
Second.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, David. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Gabe. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Communication, business, consider approval of vouchers. Any questions, comments with the bills?
Make a motion to approve payment of the bills as written.
All right. Thank you, David. Is there a second? Thank you, Brittany. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next up, correspondence. I didn't have anything. I don't know if anybody else had anything. All right. Community events. I know we have Christmas in the Grove fast approaching, along with Thanksgiving for individual families. Others? All right. Christmas in the Grove will be fun. It's coming up. First weekend in December. Future agenda items. Matt, anything we need to highlight?
Yes. Well, our budget public hearing.
Yep.
And there's something else I know I'm blanking on right now, but it's, well, police chief swearing in ceremony.
Kind of a big deal.
That's a big one. I'll stop there because those two for sure.
And we do have a gathering for chief labor.
Sorry, what was that?
We have a gathering for chief coming up as well.
Yes, December 15th from 1 to 4 here at Village Hall. Kind of a open house. People can stop in whenever they'd like and wish them well.
All right. Thanks, Matt. All right, item 11.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, David.
Non-debatable.
I think she's ready to go.
I know. Non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.